Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and we're going to the proving ground. Yeah. Okay, but before we can go to the proving ground, I do have a confession to make. I'm not well. In fact, I'm quite ill. I've got this disease that I cannot shake as I stagger through this life. And no, it's not COVID-19. Nor is it the retinitis pigmentosa, which I will also never be able to shake. But it's this, and you probably suffer from it too. Pareidolia. And that's the ability to see shapes in random objects like faces and clouds. They have the face on Mars here, which they say is actually this mountain range. And they use examples like man in the moon or rabbit in the moon. But really, most commonly, it is faces in the clouds. But, it gets worse for us because not only do we suffer from pareidolia, right? That's just a subcategory of this apophenia. And we're going to talk about apophenia in a little bit. But as I was saying, pareidolia is one major type of pareidolia is finding faces in animal shapes and so forth in clouds. And now this is a picture that I took last week at my favorite South Baltimore location where I get so many great pictures. And I'm sure you can see the face jump out at you already. And the more astute are probably even already picking out more faces because this is the photograph that made me realize I have an incurable case of pareidolia and apophenia as well. Because I spent well over an hour looking at this photograph on my phone, zooming in and out of every millimeter of this picture. I lost count how many faces that I found, and I did a couple takes of this already, and I just keep getting lost in there. So I cannot share some of the faces. I just point out this main one here, but I will share this photograph with anyone who is interested, and they could play Find the Faces with this one because it's an absolutely amazing game. But what makes it even more amazing is what's in here that's not a face. Right, that absolutely blew my mind. And so now when I took this picture, it was at about 5:30 or so in the afternoon. And the sun was really bright. So bright, in fact, that I could not see the clouds around this. I just decided that, this is my favorite spot. I've gotten so many great aerial photos here and ball, and so forth, that I'm just going to point and click. I'm just going to point at the sun and see what I get. And this is what I got. So as I was saying, I was all up everywhere in this photograph, and I came across this, and perhaps you've seen it already, but I was looking around and I said, what is that? That is something hiding behind this cloud, which kind of looks like maybe a jumping rabbit, or there's a dragon in here, or dog. There's all kinds of things. Like I said, if you're good at this game, you can find faces in almost every square inch of this photograph. But when I saw that orb, I was like, is that lens flare? So I had to look up, because I didn't, lens flare to me was always something that, was in the foreground, all right? And so I went looking up lens flare, just images of it, just so I could see what they had. And, here we got, and I think it's interesting that the predominant images right at the beginning of your search for lens flare is all examples of lens flare, from an outward, going into, outer space kind of perspective. Right? There's no lens flare from the sun through the trees or anything like that here at the top. It's all from outer space. Subtly reinforcing the idea that they're actually taking pictures, that they're using cameras and lenses to take these pictures when they're really not. Here we go. We get some more terrestrial bound lens flare here. But as I was saying, this orb type stuff is always kind of in the foreground-ish. Never really hiding behind anything. Even these out of focus ones. I mean, this one's not hiding behind this tree line or whatever that is back there, right? None of that is happening. And so I had a joke when I first did this, and they've actually changed it, so I have to cheat. I had to search for it a different way. But as I was saying, that they use this lens flare in outer space to sort of reinforce the idea that they're taking pictures. But of course you can just get a lens flare program for your Photoshop. And there's so many other lens flare programs you can buy. You can add lens flare to any photograph or image you like. It doesn't necessarily mean that you actually took your image with a camera and a lens. Right? I mean, could be all examples of Photoshop lens flare. And I remember it was kind of a big deal when the Star Trek remake came out 10 years ago or whatever it was, the amount of lens flare. And I wonder how much lens flare is actually in NASA images. I can't get into that now. But, so now I'm like ruling out like lens flare because, again, every example that I saw, and please, someone, if there are examples out there, I'd love to see them. Because I spent a good amount of time looking, all right? This is definitely an object hidden within the clouds. All right? And so I have to think, well, what kind of objects could they be hiding in the clouds around the sun? Right? Could it be the sun simulator? The projector, maybe? I don't know. But I think it's interesting. But I don't know what to make of it, because that, to me, is an object hiding out in this cloud. I thought that was really amazing, but again, more than anything was looking around and finding faces, and again, I'm just getting lost in here, picking them out. So I gotta get away. But I will send this to anybody who wants it. All right? But it really had me wondering about this pareidolia, right? Because, I had known the name and what it was. It's really getting to be out of hand for me now. And I just cannot stop seeing faces. And I've always been really kind of good at it ever since I was a kid. My parents got like the simulated wood grain in the basement when they refinished the basement. I was like 6 years old or something like that. And I could see the faces in the fake like wood knots that they had in there. And so I was always really kind of good at it. But it's really ramped up unbelievably the last year or so. I mean, just getting crazy with it. So I wanted to look up, what it was. And, and is there something wrong with me that I'm seeing so many faces and things, right? And so they give you the standard definition here. And they, like I said, they say it's part of this subcategory of apophenia, which we're going to look at in just a minute. All right. And they give these examples, as I said. But it says here that pareidolia was at one time considered a symptom of human psychosis. I mean, that they thought you were crazy if you saw these faces in the clouds or in trees or on toast or but it is now seen as a normal human tendency, which, thank God for that. Because, like I said, I think this is something that's happening to everyone these days, or something that has happened to everyone at some point in their life, right? But this kind of blew my mind. It says that pareidolia is not confined to humans. Right? Scientists have for years taught computers to use visual clues to see faces and other images. So this is them teaching the AI for facial recognition programs and things like that. And they teach other concepts of pareidolia to them. Right? And I highly recommend that everyone read this Wikipedia article on pareidolia because it does go into depth about the different forms of pareidolia and how they actually teach the computers to do that. But I don't want to go that deep. I want to, just for time's sake. But I will say that it first comes to be known to us through this Dr. Carl Ludwig Kahlbaum, who, in when? 1866, right? Wrote this paper called On Delusion of the Senses. Right? And it was reviewed the following year in the Journal of Mental Science, volume 13. It can't be a coincidence there, or can it? Right? And it translates pareidolia as partial hallucination, perception of secondary images. So I wanted to look up, who's this Dr. Carl Ludwig Kahlbaum? Right? And he was a psychologist, psychiatrist, physician at these German insane asylums, essentially madhouses, like my boy, the Earl of Shaftesbury ran. All right, and he was a lifer in terms of that work. He got some interesting 8s popping up in his birth date, not so much in his death date, but so that's kind of interesting, But so I was curious now because it said, what is apophenia? And so what apophenia is, besides being a disease that I'm sure most people who are watching or listening to this are afflicted with, but what it is it's the tendency to mistakenly perceive connections and meaning between unrelated things. Or in other words, taking things that may be coincidental and making them non-coincidental. Right? And this was a phrase first coined by psychiatrist Klaus Conrad. And so now the Germans really playing a big part of this in his 1958 publication on the beginning stages of schizophrenia. And so apophenia is a marker for schizophrenia if you perceive these connections. And so Who was Klaus Conrad? And so this is amazing because who was Klaus Conrad? Klaus Conrad was a neuropsychologist and psychopathologist for the Nazi Party. That's unbelievable. He goes on to write these books on neuropsychology, and and he creates this term, this apophenia, which, as we go through with the examples and definitions, so they also picking up other. God, see, I gotta go away. So there's a strong evidence that the use of psychedelic drugs tends to enhance pareidolia, which I think is interesting because it's a good thing that you introduced. Oh my God, that you introduced drugs as an everyday aspect of our lives, post World War II, post the Nazi Party and Klaus Conrad, right? Because this, you get your countercultural movement coming in, and not psychedelic drugs, not just LSD, but marijuana, which is now legal today in a very controlled way. And you don't think that it's legal and controlled because they know exactly how they're controlling you with it? Of course they do. And that's why it's legal. No countercultural revolution was won because marijuana is legal today. So, and let's see, where else do they? And they go on. And so they go on to talk about how this apophenia is what people who believe in conspiracy theory suffer from, right? And so to me, it's just amazing that this Nazi neuropsychologist writes these papers on the beginning stages of schizophrenia and includes this concept of apophenia in it. Because what's going to happen is that people are going to start making conspiracy theory connections all over the place after 1958. Because we know it's coming in just a few short years. Because they need to have a mechanism to explain away some of the things that are going to be happening to people over the next 50, 60, 100 years. Right? And I think it's interesting that this apophenia takes in pareidolia. And so when I see that pareidolia is introduced in 1866, by this guy, right, it just makes me want to feed it into the population reset paradigm that I've been working with, and the indoctrination program for the meat suits that they're working on, right? And that they're looking to multiply and populate the world with in a big, big way, right? And they've really got this process underway by the 1850s, right? They got the technologies coming out. Photography has already kind of started. They're reinforcing things and their ideas with the science of it, but not everything is complete yet. And as of course I've talked about that, all of this stuff is handled by company contract. And these are guilds, and the Crown is just is a central hub for these guilds, and and they all have different jobs on this plane, right? And that if this plane is this matrixy biosphere kind of thing, the way that I'm building it with the spectroscopy and the glass and things like this, right? And that our atmosphere could be artificial in some way, the clouds and the sun and so on and so forth. That there are people that are in charge of that, right? Right? People in charge of the sun simulator, right there, and the clouds used to mask it, right? The aerials, right? And the aerials could also be used as a major tool of destruction in this paradigm, that I'm working with, right? And so when I think about that, it just makes me think that some supervisor somewhere had to go run up to his boss, right? And say, sir, we have a problem with the aerials. What's going on? Well, they won't stop mimicking the things that they see on the ground. Oh, that's not good. No. We can't have these aerials exposing things we're not ready for them to see. You can't do anything about it? No, sir. The AI is out of control in these nanoparticles. Although they'll do what we ask them to do, they have a sense of humor. And they're messing with us. Crap. Okay, so we need to do something about this. What can we do? So they get worm knights like Shaftesbury on the horn, and they see what's going on with the Worm Knight program, and that they're programming these minds, and they say, well, how can we have to find a way to trick them into thinking that what they're seeing is not what they're seeing. How can we do that? And so they get their Worm Knights like Shaftesbury here to use the relatively new sciences of like psychiatry and And psychology, which was up until, they say psychology was around since the Greeks, but up until the 1870s, right, it developed independent scientific discipline in Germany, right, by guys like Ludwig here, right? And and so we'll just explain to the meat suits that, that they're not really seeing monsters or faces or weird machines up in the sky. That they're crazy that way. And then they get to bring they slowly work that methodology in to the general public. And so it becomes a thing that seeing faces in the clouds is just something that everybody can do, right? There's nothing else to it, right? You're crazy if you think otherwise, right? So you're not crazy if you see the faces anymore. You're crazy if you think the faces could be anything other than a cloud. Right? That's what makes you crazy. And that's what apophenia is. And so now this episode is just getting started. So we're going to have some fun because not only do I have all the faces in the clouds and the sun simulator, right, to play with in terms of pareidolia and apophenia. I've got this great article here when I first looked up pareidolia and seeing faces in clouds. As I was scrolling through, I saw this. What is pareidolia from Human World or Earth Sky or whatever? Look at the date on this. April 18th, 2020. There's nothing but 4s and 8s on this. So I was like, well, that's my article. That's my article right there. All right, so I have it opened up over here. All right, what is pareidolia? And so what this article is just mostly pictures of, and examples of pareidolia that people see, and it doesn't really go into the science of it or anything, but this is where the game gets fun with pareidolia and apophenia. So I'm just going to go to the one I want. And that's this one here, and this one says glass tunnels or ice worms on Mars. When I saw that, I was like, geez, they look like my god hairs in Chesapeake Bay. All right, so as we come in, and so here they are, right? And so anytime I get a chance to come here, I try to spend a little bit of time zooming around and seeing what else I could see. And this time for whatever reason, I came to this peninsula here that I didn't know at the time what this was. But as I was zooming around, I kind of came across this area here, and then I saw this really crazy strip here, and I was like, what is that? This wave pattern here shooting out of the Wheel of Life, right? Or the Wheel of the Year, or whatever you want to have, right? Right? Because it's the Dharma Chakra, right? And I think it's interesting that it's a ship's wheel, all things considered, with the maritime connections and the law and everything like that. And, I don't think that's a coincidence, playing with the apophonetic reasoning. And that's really what this whole episode is this apophenia? Where, are these connections just coincidental? Am I a raving lunatic, paranoid, delusional? I don't know, right? But, because it's also, not only is it this, but it's the Wheel of the Year, the pagan Wheel of the Year with all the seasons and things like that. But it also has all these 8-starred connections to the ancient world, where it is the symbol of creation. Unbelievable. So I was really amazed by this, right? And I'm looking around, I'm like, well, what else is going on these peninsulas, right? I'm looking around. And so I see Carol Island over here. I'm like, well, yeah, I gotta look at Carol Island, right? So I go looking around Carol Island, right? As I kind of zoom in on what it looked like features from above it, it's just kind of like this desolate, like, wasteland. And what happened here? What was going on Carol Island, right? It's got like roads and stuff, but there's nothing down here. That looks like a man-made lake to me, but there's no like buildings or anything down here that I can really see. Had some stuff over here. Don't know what that is. Looks like industrial, perhaps. But that's Carol Island, so, suspicion's there. Who knows what shenanigans they could get up to on Carol Island. And then over here we have Monk's Island. And when I was looking around Monk's Island, of course, because I've been talking about or hinting at the monks for a while and the major contribution to the story that they play. And it's no secret, the story of the monks is out there. You'll just get my version of it. But the thing about it is, this isn't an island at all. I cannot find how this is an island. But, so I'm looking around. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And, Google Earth isn't really helping me It's not giving me any names to anything here, right? As I blow up, it's just kind of fuzzy and blurry. And so it took some research. There is a town up here, Edgewood, right? So I did look into Edgewood. And you know what's funny? I looked around this area on my phone, on the Google Earth app I have on my phone, and it told me everything that this is. So I think it's interesting the differences between the two platforms. So this is a place called Gunpowder Neck. That's what this area is called. Right? And it turns out that what Gunpowder Neck is, and what Carroll Island were, and what Monk Island were, and perhaps still are part of this, the Aberdeen Proving Ground.